Hey everyone, welcome back to another video review. Today we're gonna have a look at the HAF 932 Advanced case from Cooler Master. This is a renewed version of the original HAF 932 big size tower case. Cooler Master has done a bunch of improvements, which are basically giving this case better looks and even more features. They upgraded it so that this massive case can continue competing with others. The only big downside though, and I'm gonna mention this now already, is that they didn't add any dust filters anywhere in the case. I really dislike that there weren't any added in this version. There are so many ventilation holes in this case, and even though the mesh on the front might hold back some dust, the side panel, for example, will just suck in a lot of dust anyway, and I'm afraid that this case can become a vacuum cleaner, so to speak. Anyway, let's move on with the specifications of this case. It's mainly made out of plastic, mesh and steel. The paint finish is kinda rough as well as the plastic, but that's part of the design. As we are now used to see with all the cases from the HAF series, is that they're always very industrial or army-ish, and the roughness is of course a part of that design. The case is a bit on the heavy side though, as it weighs in at 13.4 kilograms, but Cooler Master knows this, and they were so awesome to also include extra wheels for on the bottom of the case. So you can screw off the normal feet that are installed on it and then screw those wheels on. Note that only 2 of the wheels have brakes though. What they also include are many zip ties, an 8-pin power extension cable, a motherboard speaker, all the needed screws, and 5 1/4 to 3.5 inch drive bay, as well as the 5 1/4 to 3.5 inch drive bay cover, and these stickers, which seem to be some kind of fake leather-ish stickers. And what these are for, I'll cover a little bit later in the review. On the front of the case we can find 4 USB 2 ports, a FireWire port, the eSATA port, a microphone and headphone jack, the hard drive activity LED, as well as the power LED. And here on top we can find the power button and reset button. Underneath the front I/O we can find 5 1/4 inch drive bays and a 6 bay right here, but that one is used by Cooler Master for the 2 extra USB 3 ports. But I'll tell you that you can take out this module and that you can move it up and down the bays, or you could also remove it. Also, the drive bay covers themselves are easily removable just by pushing on the sides here, and then they'll come out like that. Unfortunately, there's no dust filter in these drive bay covers though. And then underneath all that is mesh for the front 230mm red LED intake fan. You can access this fan like this. But unfortunately, and once again, they didn't add a dust filter here. If you wish, you can also install an optional 120mm fan, but of course the 230mm fan would have to go out for that. On the top of the case there is again the power and reset button. There is also a space to lodge things, and underneath this, under this rubber, is a hole for a water cooling fill port. And behind all that there is the 230mm exhaust fan, but you can also install 3 120mm fans if you wish. To install the third one here, you'd have to take off this rubber and you can access the screws here. And the main reason why they give you the option to install 3 120mm fans is so you have the option to install a triple 120mm radiator for water cooling. And because the third fan is partially under this area, there are vents here for it to exhaust air. On the left side panel they added a small window which is a bit darker, and it also has some kind of square pattern on it. There is also the HAF logo, which stands for high airflow, and some ventilation here, as well as this big mesh area which covers pretty much half of the side panel. They've also installed another 230mm intake fan there, together with a fan grill, so cables won't be hitting the fan. And once again, unfortunately, they didn't add a dust filter here. On the other side panel they add some ventilation holes here, and they punched out a little here so that you can easily route cables around the motherboard tray. And they've used some kind of pattern here that actually reminds me of a jerry can for some reason, and I wouldn't even be surprised if that's where they got the idea from. If we swing the case around, you can see 2 holes for water cooling tubes to go through, and these holes are grommeted. And these holes are actually drilled in a metal plate that closes the spot for the top mounted power supply. So you can install your power supply there, or you could install a second power supply there if you're using this case for a very hardcore computer system. Note that if you install a power supply here though, that the top 230mm fan has to go out, and that you can only install 2 120mm fans. Underneath this is the opening for the motherboard's I/O shield. the included 140mm fan, but an optional 120mm fan can be installed. These are 7 expansion slots, and here is the spot for the bottom mounted power supply. After laying the case down on its side, we can have a look at the bottom, where we can find 4 HDPC style feet and even more ventilation. And this ventilation is here for the power supply to intake cool air, or for an optional one, or for 2 optional 120mm fans, or a 240mm radiator. But note that the second fan or the radiator will take up the space for the bottom mounted power supply. The inside of the case is very spacious. There is a lot of room to work on the inside, and it's painted all black. The motherboard tray has a cutout for the CPU cooler's retention plate, as well as many big cable management holes, and they've been added as well as punch outs to attach cables to. The motherboard form factors that are supported are micro ATX, standard ATX and extended ATX. In the rear we can see the included 140mm fan, and note that this fan also has a 3-pin to Molex connector adapter, and the same goes for every single fan that has been included with this case. The expansion slot covers are toolless, and all you need to do to take one out is actually, let me try to demonstrate this, push here, then that comes loose, and you can take one out like that. On the bottom, where you can install a power supply, there is a metal rest for the power supply to rest on. They give you the option to extend this after screwing out this thumb screw for longer power supplies. This metal piece is also removable in case you're installing a power supply in the top, and then you can install not only one but 2 120mm fans or a 240mm radiator. In the top of the case we can see the massive 230mm fan, and then a bit more to the front we can see the 5 toolless 5¼ drive bays. Installing a device in one of these bays is really easy. You just slide the device in and push this button. And oh yeah, by the way, you see that white spot right here? Well, that's what these stickers are for. You stick them on the side of the 5¼ device and that white spot is gone. This is the cable of the USB 3 ports, and it has this USB 3 connector, so you can directly connect it to your motherboard if your motherboard has this port, and you won't need to route any USB 3 cables to the back of your case or anything, so this is a big plus. Now some of you might know this plastic piece, and you might recognize it from the Cooler Master HAF X case. This is a GPU air duct which they include to add extra airflow to cool your graphics cards. This is most useful if you're running a multi-graphics card setup, and note that you can also install another 120mm fan in this air duct to add more airflow. The air duct can be repositioned a little so it covers the top 6 PCI slots or the bottom 6. It can also be removed. Now it seems that I only have to cover one more thing, and that is the hard drive area. And you can install a total of 5 3.5-inch drives or 4 2.5-inch drives using the 2 included 3.5-inch to 2.5-inch hard drive adapters, on which you can install 2 2.5-inch drives on each side, and then totaling up to 4 2.5-inch drives. Installing a hard drive, by the way, is very easy because of this very easy toolless design. You just take out the hard drive bracket like that. You have the hard drive bracket here, which is very flexible, and then you take your hard drive, put it on there, make sure that these pins go in correctly, and just quickly check that on the sides here, also here, like here it's a bit loose, so there we go. And then we slide in the hard drive like that, and that's it. Alright, so I've finished building my PC into the case, and well, there's only positive things to say about building your PC system in this, to be honest. It was a lot of room to work because it's a big size tower case, and in the inside it's just very spacious, so there's enough room for everything. Also the cable management holes are really big enough to route all the cables, so that's a big plus. If you're installing even more graphics cards, like 3 for example, you're gonna have enough room behind the motherboard tray as well as big enough cable management holes to route all those cables. Now I didn't install the GPU air duct, and neither did I use the extension cable here, as I didn't need them. I didn't need the air duct as I don't have many graphics cards, and I didn't need the extension cable for the 4-pin connector, as the cable from my power supply is big enough to go around the motherboard tray and then go out the cable management hole here, and then connect to the connector on my motherboard. Alright, and if we have a look at the other side of the motherboard tray, yeah, one thing that I said before already is that there's enough space to route all the cables there. Also, the punched out side panel helps with that. There's also big cable management holes, as I also said before, so yeah, that really all helps. Maybe a few more punch outs would have been useful, though not that much, there is enough of them. But a few more here might have helped maybe for, or it would help for a few other setups with like more graphics cards, for example. Anyway, this is also, by the way, the 4-pin power cable here, so as you can see it's long enough to go around there. But though for some power supplies it won't be long enough, but remember again, they include extension cable for that, so don't worry. Also, to route all the cables, I've used a bunch of zip ties around the entire cable management setup. And remember that they also include zip ties, so that's really useful. They include a lot, so you probably don't need to buy any or something. So you're going to be able to make your own cable management job with the zip ties they include and the extension cable. And something that you might have noticed, and well, I hope you noticed, is the cutout here, which isn't big enough, because as you can see, that's the CPU retention plate, the cooler retention plate, and yeah, it's actually underneath the cutout. So the cutout should have been bigger, or maybe it should have been positioned a bit lower. So that's maybe a small issue there for installing the retention plate, well, you know, for swapping the cooler and all for that thing. So actually it loses its purpose there. Alright, and then my conclusion, and I have many more positive things to say about this case than negative things, although the negative things are perhaps major issues, at least for me. Now, the few good things, the many good things are the good airflow, that inside is black, there's lots of USB ports as well as the USB 3 ports with the USB 3 motherboard connections. You have good cable management options, you have the holes and the punch outs and all, and then there's lots of space to work on the inside, and it's very good for water cooling as well, by the way, because of the filler port and the option to install a 360mm radiator. It's also very toolless, and there are many more very good features with this case. Also, the build quality is very, very good, and this is something that we can always expect from Cooler Master. Good build quality. It's really one of the reasons why you should choose Cooler Master products. Now, the major negative issue that I have with this case is that there are no dust filters at all anywhere. So this becomes, and as I said in the beginning of the review, a vacuum cleaner, so to speak. So yeah, I don't really like that they didn't include any, even though this is a revision of the original version. They should have at least added the dust filter perhaps in the front, for the front intake fan, as you can remove that part there. It's really easy for a dust filter, and also in the drive bay covers, and perhaps on the side as well. Then the CPU cooler's retention plate cutout is way too small, and it isn't positioned correctly, so I don't really know what went wrong there. But yeah, that's not really good there, as it lost its function. Then the front I/O connections on the front here. Yeah, I don't really like that they're positioned towards you like this. So if you put a cable in there, it's gonna hang in front of the DVD writer if you put it on top like I did. So that's perhaps an issue. It's a small detail, but it's something that I personally don't really like that much. And then the last thing that I should brag about is the side panels, which are really easy to take off and all, and they're really easy to put back on, so that's really comfortable. But they're very heavy, and they're a bit bended somehow, so I don't know how that happens. But if you're taking off the side panel, just be sure that you don't let it fall on your desk or anything, because you don't want to damage anything, so be careful when taking them off. But overall, everything considered, this is an awesome case. Thanks for watching this video review, guys. Be sure to stay tuned and watch many more. Go over to our forums to ask questions as well. Just leave them in the comment area here below in YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks to Cooler Master for sending this case out to us to review. And I'll see you all in the next video.